Okay, I am going to read part 6 of the epilogue. The night I confessed to the Murphys, when I was sitting all alone in my mother's car in the driveway, I never actually drove anywhere. The following spring, after I turned 18, I was finally able to get behind the wheel and move. Credit to Dr. Sherman. He encouraged me to set new goals for myself, and driving was at the top of my list. It took about 6 months, but I finally experienced what it feels like for a senior to drive himself to school, and I did it just before graduation. At our ceremony before handing out our diplomas, Principal Howard mentioned Connor. I didn't see the Murphys in the crowd or Zoe, but I was there and I heard his name clearly. At home that day, I reached underneath my bed and removed my cast. Connor's name was severed down the middle, but the cast was still in one piece on the other side. I wrapped it around my arm, and briefly, the two parts of the cast appeared as one. The 6 letters reconnected. Connor, restored. When I removed the cast, it was as if I could still see his name on my skin. I realized then I can never wash him away. I found an old yearbook from 8th grade. Everyone had been given their own page to decorate. Most people made collages of family photos or drew the logos of their favorite sports teams or wrote out inspirational quotes they'd found through Google searches. Connor had listed his 10 favorite books. I decided to try to read all of them. I went back and studied every post he ever made online. Every now and then, I'd make an anonymous donation to the Connor Project for whatever amount I could manage. Then one day, I stumbled into a small fundraising event in a supermarket parking lot. As soon as I heard Elena's voice in the mix and realized where I was, I turned right around with my mother's shopping list. But before I could get away, someone called out my name. I looked back, expecting to find a classmate from school, but the kid in front of me was a complete stranger. "Can we talk a minute?" he said. He started in the direction of my car. I didn't have much choice but to follow. "I was hoping you'd be here," he said, smiling. I had avoided public events for exactly this reason. I didn't want to be the Evan Hansen that the world thought they knew. I didn't want to have to lie anymore. "It's funny," the kid said, gazing ahead. "At first, I was actually happy to hear that Connor had made a new friend." My blood froze. I stopped walking. The more I looked into it, the way people were describing him, I knew something wasn't right. "I'm sorry, but who—" "Relax," he said, still with that easy smile. "I'm not going to say anything. I was going to. I really wanted to, but—" He paused and turned toward the crowd. "I mean, look at this. He's finally getting the attention he deserved." I took a closer look at him. He had bright, arresting eyes against a dark complexion, hair that fell in sort of an effortless way that mine had never known, a smile that I imagined could please both the girlfriend and her parents too. "So you and Connor were friends," he said. He told me how their friendship started and then faded and then abruptly ended. That afternoon after school, he texted me. I was trying to respond, but I was at work and I didn't want to just... I called him later that night and it went straight to voicemail. It was a few days before I found out what he did. He grew quiet, his head down. If I knew he was... I didn't know. He struggled to put the words together. I keep thinking if I'd been able to talk to him. A long silence followed, and in that silence I finally understood the reason he came to speak to me that day. Not to call me out, but rather himself. I knew something about the kind of guilt he must have been carrying around, and the fear. Behind his smile was a heavy burden. But of all the things he told me that day, one thing stands out. Connor, he was just... I've never met someone like that innocent, that pure. Sometimes I think maybe he was too pure for all of this. The Connor he described was nothing like the one I'd known or heard about. I felt this renewed sense of regret, but at the same time, at least I was finally getting a chance to learn. I spent the next few months trying to figure out what to do with this new knowledge that I'd gained.